I've heard concerns from gay and lesbian friends that fear Paul LePage is going to discriminate against them. Now, this fear comes from a soundbite in a radio interview where Mayor LePage was asked about the Human Rights Act and what he thought about it. And he said that he thought it should go back to the legislature and be looked at. Now, this is in reference to an incident about a boy in the 6th grade who wanted to be able to use the girls' bathroom in school. Back in March, on March 1st of 2010, a proposal was made by the Human Rights Commission, and they tried to establish a regulation where boys could use girls' bathrooms in all of Maine's schools. And this Human Rights Commission, it's a state agency, and what they do is enforce anti-discrimination laws. And so that makes it available for them under the Human Rights Act to be able to sue people and take you to court over these claims. Now, an issue that many people had with these regulations is that they were developed in a closed-door session. And the plan would establish a mandatory transgender bathroom regulation for all Maine schools. The proposal was prompted by a decision last year that found in a school in Orono, the Asa Adams School, had discriminated against a boy by not allowing him to use the girls' bathroom. And using this one case, they justified putting another regulation on the books. And so the Maine Human Rights Commission had a secret meeting in December, and the public wasn't notified. But Mary Bonato was. Mary Bonato is the director of the Gay and Lesbian Activists and Defenders. And she was invited and allowed to also present a legal brief at this meeting. The Maine Human Rights Commission said, in documents that were obtained through a Freedom of Access Act, that Asa Adams did indeed discriminate against this boy by not allowing him to use the girls' bathroom because he feels like a girl. The Maine Human Rights Commission said they found reasonable grounds to believe that unlawful discrimination had occurred and that the elementary school was obligated to let boys use girls' bathrooms if they wanted to. So another document was obtained, and the details here were the proposal itself, and it says that transgender students must be allowed to access bathrooms that correspond with their gender identity or expression, or, if they prefer, to existing single-stall bathrooms. So these regulations will impose statewide mandates and presents a number of valid concerns for many people because it's a regulation that will affect every Mainer. One, by increasing the number of prosecutions and court convictions of individuals, groups, and organizations that don't think it's okay for boys to use girls' bathrooms in public places. In a democracy like ours, the people of Maine should have known about this issue, and they should have been able to vote on it first, not have a person or special interest group behind closed doors, in secret meetings, create regulations that do not represent the vast majority of the people. That is not fair or equal. It is the over-regulations across the board that has led Maine to the point where we are at now. And this human rights issue is just another example. Another area where there's a great deal of confusion is this issue of gay marriage and what it means. Let's take a look at current Maine state law. Title 22, Subtitle 2, Part 6, Chapter 701 covers health, welfare, births, marriages, and deaths, and it also outlines the general provisions. This state statute clearly equates domestic partnership to marriage. And here the law is perfectly clear. Domestic partnership is equal to marriage. This is the key and something that we'll look at a lot closer. What is state law and what is federal law? Keep in mind that domestic partnership was not created for just same-sex couples. It was created for heterosexual, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, questioning, and queer folks back in 2004. Same-sex couples have had all the legal rights and responsibilities as everyone else under Maine law and have had so for 6 years now. Maine does not discriminate. You have seen and heard the commercials on TV and radio where the leaders and supporters and those that don't understand the issue say things like, gay couples can't adopt in Maine. Well, that's not true. Same-sex couples can adopt, and they've been able to do so since 2007. You've heard that they can't visit their spouse in the hospital, and that's not true either. They can visit their spouses in the hospital, they can file income taxes together, they can buy homes together. Federal law is where the problem is. That's where same-sex couples are running into issues, and it involves programs like Social Security. However, it's not just same-sex couples that are having those problems. Social Security is the problem. We must keep in mind that Social Security is not secure. It is bankrupt, and it is not going to be available for any of us as we get older. Social Security has failed us all. If Mainers would have changed the legal definition of the word marriage in 2009, that would not have changed federal law, which is where the discrepancies are. There is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits same-sex couples from taking part in legal binding agreements that are required to share their lives and assets upon union, as well as evenly dividing them up when they separate and divorce. As long as they are consenting adults and not currently married to anyone else, there's no problem. Again, the problem that same-sex couples have has to do with federal law, because on the state level, everything is already fair and equal. This is a very important issue, and it is important to know that under Maine state law, all is already equal, and that there is nothing any governor, whether it's Mitchell or Cutler or LePage, will do to change federal law. No matter how many times or ways Mainers change the state law, it would not change the laws of the other states in the country. So that then begs the question, why was this multi-million-dollar campaign consisting of attack ads, misinformation, and propaganda waged on the good people of our state from special interest groups out of state? Think about this. What would have happened if gay marriage would have passed? Let's look at the referendum question closely and see exactly what it's asking us to do. Here's what it says. Do you want to reject the new law that lets same-sex couples marry and allows individuals and religious groups to refuse to perform these marriages? This is really two questions in one. The first part is asking if you want to reject the new law that allows gays and lesbians to enter into a legal binding contract, which is already something they've been able to do in Maine for the last 6 years. And the second part is asking if you want to legalize discrimination against same-sex couples by allowing individuals or groups to be able to refuse performing those weddings. Question 1 was defeated, and heterosexual and same-sex couples are still allowed to legally join together in matrimony under state law. So the first part of that question had absolutely nothing to do with rejecting them. The second part was asking us to legalize discrimination against an individual or religious group by allowing them to refuse to perform these ceremonies. Since the first part of the question is a moot point, the thrust of this new law would have been on the second part of the question, which would make it legal to prosecute individuals and groups that don't wish to wed same-sex couples. Passing question 1 would criminalize and prosecute individuals, groups, and organizations that did not want to perform the same-sex ceremonies. And the only people that fall into that category are Jews, Christians, Muslims, and others. If question 1 would have passed, it would have legitimized the discrimination that they were claiming in the first place. It was a gambit. Let's look at what the Maine Human Rights Commission does again. Under the Human Rights Act, this state agency enforces regulations they create and has the authority to sue people under state law based on claims of discrimination because of sexual preference and gender identity disorders. Also, passing question 1 would have allowed on the federal level for charges of hate crimes to be pressed against those religious groups for refusing to perform their wedding ceremonies. We will be looking at this in depth as we go forward.